Well, hello. I'd like to welcome you to another exciting episode of Pens in Use. This is the show where I talk about the fountain pens and inks that I've been using throughout the week. So let's dive into it. If videos like this interest you, where I talk about fountain pens both new and old and at all price points, I would invite you to subscribe. And hey, got any tips for my Katab situation? Let's take a look. Oh, and I'll just add a little rearranging behind me. I don't know if I like this here, but my wireless is up there for the moment because it has to be close to an outlet and it's an old house, so we'll see. So from left to right, I have a Senator President. You knew that was coming back. I have an Arrow mottled black and purple, which hasn't been seen on this show in over a year. Parker Ellipse. Sorry, I just realized I'm missing half of my lighting. Waterman Carène, because several people pointed out a similarity between those two. A Rexpen. A pen pal wrote me he found a similar pen on eBay, only it was sold as a Senator, which doesn't surprise me at all because I've seen it sold as a Senator also. An Aurora 88, the vintage kind, not the modern kind. A Pon Senior. Which has been my catastrophe this week. A Pelikan 400 NN. And finally a Kaweco V14S. Those are the pens and inks I'm using this week. I took this set apart while I had guests last week and don't have it quite together the way it was, so I got to work on it a little bit more yet, but we're getting there. So as always, we'll be looking at these writing samples in my Bomo art journal. So my first pen, which of course I had to ink up, I actually ran almost all my pens dry last week, so what you see here, with one exception, is everything that's inked up. I have this Senator President with the Ukrainian writing on it. Kind of a Mobile 149 look to it. Can't compare it directly to that pen because I have no experience, but a very nice writer all the same, with its broad gold nib. These were also sold with steel nibs, but I happen to get the broad version. And it writes like a dream. The ink in this pen is Callifolio. In fact, you'll see a lot of that ink this week. Callifolio Inca Sol. I took the opportunity while my parents were visiting to rearrange my ink collection and organize it better. So now I have all the Callifolio inks sitting out on a table, and they make a nice circular pattern when they're sitting out together, when you get 8 bottles together. So that's pretty nifty. My next pen hasn't appeared here for a while. My previous experience with it has been kind of a disappointment. I don't know if you can tell, probably sorta. It's actually just black plastic with a thin layer of colorful plastic glued onto it. I found that disappointing when I got it. You know, it is a piston filler, steel nib, with gold plating that's starting to come off. It's an Arrow. But what I like about it, just as I was writing with it this week, suddenly it just turned nice. We'll see how it goes today. It's starting out kind of like it started out when I first inked it. This is an Arrow. It was sold as a mottled purple and black. And no flex to the nib, but it was writing very well as just sort of a daily writer type of pen. Well, that's a very deformed C. And the ink in it is Callifolio Violet. Probably not the best nib to show that ink off in, but like I said, this pen is he's a daily writer type of pen. By the way, I forgot, but I had this thought since it's been 2 weeks since I filmed one of these. I thought it'd be kind of fun to do an ink swatch for each one of these, because half of this is all about the ink. Some people watch this just to see my variety of inks. And here I forgot I was going to do that. I may change the shape of the swatch, who knows, but that's what my fevered imaginings came up with. Alright, the next pen you saw as a first impression this week, but I actually filmed that first impression a month or two ago. This is a Parker Ellipse. A pen that had a brief run around the year 2000, 2001. And then that was all she wrote. But kind of a fun pen. I'm pleased with it. This is its second fill. So this is not the ink that was in that review. Parker Ellipse. In that review, I had some kind of a blue-black, wasn't it? Parker blue-black. So this is a Parker Ellipse. It has a medium, really deformed medium, I guess. Medium nib in it, and the ink, again, surprise, surprise, Callifolio. Bordeaux. And one of the remarks I made in the original first impression was it seemed like kind of a dry pen. And I don't disagree with that assessment now, but it's definitely a lot wetter with this ink than it was with the Parker Quink Blue Black. And still a very nice writer. Now, some people mentioned in that first impression, well, how's that compared to the Waterman Carène? So, Parker Ellipse at the bottom, Carène at the top. I think what they're thinking of is the Carène has that nifty doohickey on the opposite finial. And yeah, I can see where there's a certain design similarity. The nib is quite different. Let me hold up the Carène first, just give you a quick look at it. And this has the amber finish. It comes in more finishes than the Ellipse ever did. The nib is an inlaid nib. But it's one of those pens you've seen me have for a while. I enjoy it. Nice wet writer. If I were ranking pens, I forget if I did the accent the right way. But anyway, if I were ranking pens, I'd put this Carène just slightly above the Ellipse. And this is another Callifolio. Equinoxe, which I know is a French word, and I know I just butchered it. It's a blue-black sort of a color. I can't always tell what you're going to see at your end from the preview on the camcorder. It doesn't really represent colors the best for me. So basically I use it for like what I just messed up. Am I on screen or not on screen? Because colors, not so much. All right. And then we have the Rexpen, which is a fantastic pen from the famous Toes factory of Zagreb, Croatia, with a fun gold German Bach nib. There's the little goat. And since I don't know a model, we'll just go with Rexpen. The ink in it is Callifolio. Olivastre. Just make sure I spell it right, even if I butchered the pronunciation. And as I look over, I realize that I read my ink about 2 lines too soon. So this one's correct. We need to go back and do a correction on the Waterman Carène. That is Robert Oster. Thuderstorm. Had a weird experience the other day. I was having just a goofy dream, and who cares about anybody's dreams? But then the dream suddenly started incorporating this horrible storm, and then there were some tornadoes coming, and I wake up to a thunderstorm. So I don't know if my brain somehow incorporated that thunderstorm into it. We actually had a lot of thunderstorms during my parents' visit. Not this week. This week's been hot. I have the air conditioning off right now, which if you see my face, it's kind of sweaty. That would be why. And thunderstorms are a different order from summer storm. I love a nice rain. We had an amazing rain Sunday morning, and I just kind of sat here at my desk, only with the chair pushed back, just watching the water fall out front, and it was awesome. None of it was coming through windows. I could just enjoy it. Aurora 88, this is a vintage pen. Sort of inspired by the Parker 51, which you'll notice I do own one, but I hardly ever use it. This is the Callifolio Equinoxe. So I apologize for that. Thing with this pen is it's like razor thin, but then it flexes well. Just an awesome, awesome pen. One of my favorites in my whole collection. I know it doesn't look like much, but, try writing with it and you'll understand why I like it so much. I'd put it up there past those beloved Bach nibs. In fact, I've got 2 of these, and you may notice when I do the giveaway coming up, I think it's next week, my other Aurora 88 will not be in it. It's not quite as nice a nib as this, but not a pen I want to give away because I like it so much. This was a surprise project for this week. I tried to fill it and nothing happened. I pressed the button, it just kind of makes weird clicking noises. So, took it apart, the spring, the pressure bar had broken. This takes a weird size pressure bar, so I had to make was it an 84 or 86, whatever the longest one is, fit. It was right around 72 millimeters, and then work it. It did want to pop out the section, but I think I've got it working now. That weird clicking may explain why it wasn't holding a whole lot of ink before. The brand on this pen, I know I could fill that in, but I didn't. Pond Senior. And the nib. So I find it interesting that it's one of those. It's a branded nib. It's a Norwegian pen from a company nobody ever talks about. I have a Pond 52 that I also got by trading with a Norwegian gentleman, and both of them are just wonderful, wonderful pens. I discovered also, for as long as I've owned this one, I've never actually done a review on it, so that is one of those things I'm going to be filming. Herbin Lie de Thé. If you notice next week that I'm forgetting to do the ink swatches, interrupt me so I start doing them. Pelikan 400 NN. You may know that I also own an M800. Which one do I like better? This one. This is just a good size, really pleasant to write with. I had totally forgotten I owned this bottle of ink. But then my reorganizing, I discovered it, like, well, why don't I use it? And then I tried filling it, and I remembered why. Because it wasn't originally going to go in this pen, and I think this is my last fill into this pen. The bottle is ridiculously shaped, and most of my pens don't fit inside it. So I think if we see any more of this ink, it's going to be in only my truly slim black pens. I mean, the color, it's a blue. I think it's the bottle more than anything that's cool about it. It's heart-shaped, if that gives you a clue. Don't ask me why I bought it, but I did. And finally, my daily writers, since I emptied out that Pilot Custom 823, which, who was it? Pens and Tea just did a video about what one pen would she take to a desert island, and it was that, well, it was that exact pen, a fine point Pilot Custom 823. Certainly holds a lot more ink than this pen does. I don't know, there's something about this pen I just have always liked. This is the pen that started me down that whole rabbit hole. Did I even show it to you? I'm sorry. This is the pen that started me down that whole rabbit hole of slim black European pens. I've lately branched off into Europe, or I'm sorry, into Israel and India, and even a little bit the United States. Don't know where I was going with that. The ink in this one is Pelikan 4001 Brilliant Black. I was excited recently to use up my bottle of Takesumi. I forgot the C in black. I'm hoping soon to use up my bottle of Apache Sunset. Yeah, I've just kind of set myself a goal of emptying out a few bottles of ink that look like they're ready to be emptied out. And of not buying any more ink until that situation is rectified. Now, I thought this would be a good time. I can't write with this pen yet because I used it up. Or I'm sorry, it's a first impression. The first impression hasn't appeared on the channel yet. This is a Selector. Don't know the model. But check out that gorgeous finish. Kind of reminds me of like the celluloid version of this thin plastic overlay on that arrow. And you know, that nib, no comparison to the arrow. I have enjoyed writing with this pen, and in fact refilled it once with the same ink after filming my first impression because I have been enjoying it so much. So I got to get that one published so you can appreciate that wonderful, wonderful pen. Also going to be filming, oh, they're way over there, some first impressions of some Indian pens that were given to me by a viewer, because I think I mentioned before, I don't do much pen buying in the summer, and I have a few other things coming in the pipeline. That organization series, it's definitely hot enough I can move downstairs, so I'm going to try and get a few reviews filmed ahead up here. I may end up doing a pens in use or two downstairs, but then I can move downstairs and use the green screen as it's meant to be used. All right, before we go back to A-roll footage, I wanted to show you my other project. I haven't made too much progress on it. This is a Katab. Oops. This is the one that I showed you that was not writing when I did its first impression. I decided to take it apart. You know, the cap, somebody took a nibble out of it. I had a viewer who's familiar with Hebrew writing. Apparently recognized that as a name. So that was interesting. He even had a Wikipedia entry, so we'll save that for when I get this pen working, if I get it working. But that was interesting speculation, and somebody I wouldn't mind as a former owner of the pen. Interesting finish. And it was a piston filler. And yeah, I'm saving the piston for last. This is the nib. So, gold nib. So what I did, I thought I had broken the piston. But now, I don't think I did. Now, I'm not 100% sure how it makes a seal and everything, but this is the piston. Obviously, the cork needs to be replaced. One thing that concerns me, as far as the future of this pen, and no chunkies came out, so I don't know exactly what was here, but there's a hole here. You can see daylight through it. And this screws right into it. So, obviously, you can make the piston go up and down with that. So, this bit, I know I'll just use rubber O-rings, get them the right diameter to fix everything. I'm not sure if that hole on the end is as designed or not. Maybe somebody out there knows. I'm not sure how to deal with that hole. You know, I thought I would have to steal the piston works out of maybe one of my Chinese pens, but I don't think I'll have to. It's all seems to be in decent shape and working properly, but I'm not sure how to deal with that part. You know, does it just sit in here like this? Because this screws right over the end of the barrel. So I'm not sure where I'm headed with that pen. I kind of vegetated for a few days after my parents left, and now it's hot. But while they were here, you know, we had a good visit. They're both in their 70s. My dad's about to be 80, so I don't know how many more times they'll be coming out here. There was barbecue down on Main Street, so I took them down there, and it was very hard for my mother to walk that far. You know, that's a walk I do all the time, and she apparently doesn't. You know, they both work out. They go to the gym every morning, which I don't do. I probably should. Yeah, the distance thing is really hard for her. That's, you know, it's been 2 years since I've been able to see them for various reasons I don't want to get into on the channel. And, you know, it just kind of hard to see them and you realize they're getting older. So, but anyway, I saved them a variety of work around the house. It kept them busy. You know, they're in weather like this, they're just going to be sitting at their age. But, you know, we'd go out in the morning. I had some weeding in the garden. They found a lot more weeding, so it was way beyond my standards that they did. A lot of digging out here, which I ended up doing. You know, it's stuff I'd saved, but they weren't too interested. There was some pruning around the house that I ended up doing, which is fine. And then I had some trimming of grass around the house, and they did that. But, you know, it made them feel like they were helping me out, so that was good. Took them up to the Badlands one day. You know, it's not very often you see it green at this time of year. They got to see a buffalo. They were hoping for more, but, you know, like I told them, if you want to see buffaloes and wildlife, you got to go up there in the early morning or late in the evening. So next time they're here, they're thinking, hopefully it'll be next year, they're thinking we might go up in the morning. So, yeah. So that was good. And then they are back safely in Pennsylvania. In fact, my live stream that I did on Sunday was interrupted by my mother calling to tell me that they'd just gotten back home. So that was the phone call that took me by surprise that rapidly concluded that live stream. I want to thank everybody who showed up there. We got demonetized on that live stream, but I got word from YouTube yesterday, I think, that they've decided that there's no objectionable content after all. Lost the $1 or $2 of advertising money I get from that video, but such is life. My driving videos are almost always demonetized. So, at least they usually don't demonetize pen reviews or pens in use. So, who knows what I did or said that set off their censor. Apparently it can even pick up, like if I swear, it'll pick that up. It's like, oh, not family friendly. And, you know, if I start talking about politics and stuff or wars or any of that kind of stuff, it'll demonetize them. But I don't know what the heck I talked about in that video, but demonetized. So, glad to have that back on. And that's something a lot of channels are dealing with. You know, you can see why people don't want to advertise on, well, let's not be too specific, but certain types of content, let us say. But a fountain pen channel, and even my most controversial video is pretty benign. So YouTube, that's what happens when they use just an automated algorithm. And yeah, there's no way they can watch all these videos, so I don't know. There's no real way for YouTube to win and for creators to win, I guess. Luckily, I don't do this for the money. It just makes a nice perk. In fact, I just deposited another check. I'm thinking about what it could become. I've saved up a few checks now. I'm not a high maintenance channel. I mean, biggest thing I buy is pens, and well, we've talked about that. It was kind of interesting. I had a unexpected big reaction to my video on fountain pen collecting. That was one of those driving videos. Usually I get a very small audience for those because nobody cares. But I do them more as for me, it's kind of a video essay. I just research a topic and write, or sometimes I just have a bunch of thoughts and I share them. And the fountain pen connection is it was really written down with a fountain pen, but I don't know. It's just something I do for me more than anything. I figure my viewers are intelligent enough to know that if they don't like that particular series, then they won't watch it. Just like some people will say, oh, he's doing a vintage pen again. Won't watch that one. Or some people, oh, it's Pens in Use. I hate that show. Or, whatever. So, a little bit of everything. I think this organization series, some people aren't going to like that either. It might get some new viewers. So, if you can tell, I don't know where exactly the camera stopped there, but if you can tell, I'm a little bit sweaty. I really want to turn the air conditioner back on. Yeah, it's hot. I didn't look at the temperature, but I didn't feel like walking to the post office this afternoon, so I didn't. So, but anyway, if you have any advice for me about the Katab, let me know down in the comments. I am stumped about the hole at the end of that. And maybe it's okay. I don't know. So, yeah, any advice you have is more than welcome. I know most of the piston fillers I have totally cover the end with piston, so I don't know how I would replicate that, but I'm sure I could find a way, even if I put just a drop of hot melt glue in the end, worst case scenario. So anyway, I also was very impressed. Steph from Grand Mia Pens showed his newest pen creation on his channel, his first pen creation. I was very impressed with that, very sharp looking pen. And it just shows the kind of level of detail he does. So that said, I want to thank you for watching. And if videos like this interest you, where I talk about fountain pens both new and old and at all price points, I would invite you to subscribe. And hey, any advice on the Katab? What do you think of the ink swatches? Let me know down in the comments. So I want to thank you for watching. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.